"Dad, there's no room for you. We invited too many people." That was the first thing my son said when I arrived at my grandson's Thanksgiving dinner. He didn't even look me in the eye when he said it, just kept glancing nervously back at the rented banquet hall filled with people I barely recognized. "Hi everyone. My name is Walter." I stood there with the pumpkin pie I'd baked myself, still warm, still in my hands, and 150 faces turned toward me like I'd crashed a party that had clearly moved on without me. No chair. No place setting. Not even a whisper of "we'll find space." Just awkward silence and a few forced smiles. I looked at my grandson, 17, tall, bright-eyed. He gave me a half-hearted wave. No one offered to stand or squeeze me in. "It's okay, son," I said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "I understand." And I turned and walked out, slow, steady. No drama. But inside, something in me shifted. Back home, I set the pie on my kitchen counter, picked up the phone, and called my accountant. "Good evening, Walter," he said. "What can I do for you?" I smiled. "We need to make a few changes." I didn't sleep that night. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just still, watching the ceiling fan rotate slowly while my mind replayed the look on my son's face when he told me to leave. Like I was an afterthought. A placeholder. A man they used to need but didn't anymore. I'd built everything they stood on. Paid for colleges, bailed out mortgages, wrote checks when they couldn't breathe, and they couldn't save me a folding chair? In the morning, I poured myself a cup of black coffee and stared out at the frozen lawn behind my house. The silence felt heavier than usual. Then my phone buzzed. "Walter," said my accountant again, "I reviewed what you asked last night. I need clarification. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Yes," I said. "Every cent, pull it. All of it. All of it." I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "And call the attorney. We're rewriting the will." He went quiet for a second. Then, "Understood." My son thought Thanksgiving was crowded? Let's see how crowded the rest of his life feels when the man he disrespected rewrites the ending. And I was just getting started. 3 days later, the ripples began. My son Jeremy called me mid-afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to speak to someone who had looked me in the eye and made me feel invisible. His voice was tight, confused. "Dad, I just got a notification that our joint family trust account was closed. Is everything okay?" I didn't reply. By sunset, I'd pulled every dollar out of the joint investments, removed my name from cosign guarantees and transferred the beach house deed, not to him but to the local veterans housing program. I wasn't being petty. I was correcting a mistake. That evening, Jeremy's wife showed up at my house uninvited. "Walter, this has to be some misunderstanding," she said, forcing a sweet smile. Jeremy was just overwhelmed that night. He didn't mean to. I held up my hand. "Stop." She blinked. "I've accepted that I'm not needed at your table. But I won't be needed in your balance sheet either." And before she could gather her words, I added, "You all made room for 150 people. I'm making space for none." Then I closed the door slowly and locked it. The next wave came from my grandson, Mason, the same one whose Thanksgiving dinner I was uninvited from. He texted me that night. "Grandpa, I didn't know they'd do that. I didn't agree with it." I stared at the message for a long time. Mason had always been the only one in that house who saw me as something more than an old man who wrote checks. But silence had a cost. He watched me be turned away and said nothing. So I replied, "Mason, kindness delayed is kindness denied." He didn't reply. The next morning, the charity board called to confirm receipt of the $820,000 endowment I'd set aside for Mason's college. They were stunned when I told them to redirect it to fund housing grants for students from foster care backgrounds. The woman on the line whispered, "Are you sure, Mr. Walters? That's a large gift." I said, "Yes. Give it to someone who knows what it means to be left out of the room." That night, I sat alone in the same chair where I'd watched my family grow up. The house was quiet, but my soul wasn't bitter. It was finally clean. I woke up to a voicemail from my son Daniel. His voice was tense. "Dad, we heard about the donation. Mason's devastated. He's saying you hate him now. Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. Then I made breakfast. See, what Daniel didn't realize was this. He taught his son it was okay to treat people like placeholders. And now, Mason was tasting the same emptiness he helped serve me last Thursday. Actions echo. Always. Later that afternoon, my lawyer confirmed the final filings had gone through. My estate, valued at just over $14 million, was now divided across 3 trust foundations. One for children aging out of the foster care system. one for caretakers of Alzheimer's patients, and one anonymous fund for veterans over 70 with no family support. My name would be on none of them, but my fingerprints would be everywhere. That evening, I sat on the porch and watched the sun disappear behind the hills. No regrets. No spite. Just a quiet man who finally remembered he could still choose where his love landed. And for once, I chose people who saw me. The local paper picked up the story by morning. The headline didn't mention my name. That was intentional. But Daniel saw it anyway. Veteran elder donates entire estate after Thanksgiving exclusion. He knew. He called me again, 4 times. No voicemail this time. Just silence waiting on the other end. Then Mason showed up. He knocked. No cameras. No performative shame. Just a teenager standing in the cold with puffy eyes and trembling hands. "Grandpa," he said. "I messed up." I let him inside. We didn't talk about Thanksgiving. Or the house. Or the money. We talked about his piano teacher and how he was scared of failing an audition. We talked about what kindness used to mean in this family. He stayed for dinner. When Daniel called again that night, I let it ring. Mason was helping me clean the dishes. He looked up and whispered, "Can I still come next week?" I nodded. "I'd like that." Some people earn your time back with apologies. Others with action. Mason was learning the difference. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the table had room again, not for blood but for love. The next morning, Daniel finally showed up. No announcement, no ceremony, just a knock and then his voice through the door. "Dad, it's me." I opened it slowly. He looked smaller. Not physically. But everything about him had shrunk. His posture, his confidence, his certainty. "I didn't mean to." "You did," I interrupted. "You meant every word." He paused, then nodded. "You're right. I was trying to impress the others. Show them I could lead the family now. I thought that's what being head of the family meant." "And what does it mean now?" I asked. His eyes flicked toward the dining room, the same table that had once been his mother's favorite place, where he used to hide under the chairs during storms. He swallowed. "It means protecting the people who built it in the first place." I let that sit in the air. Then I pointed to the garage. "Your mother's old chairs are still there. Sand them down. Paint them. Bring them back in." He stared, unsure. I finished. "You want a seat at the table? Build one." And as he walked to the garage, I knew this wasn't forgiveness. It was foundation. That Sunday I didn't go to church. I didn't open the paper. I just sat by the window with a cup of coffee and waited. One by one the cars pulled up. Daniel was first. He carried in the old chairs, beautifully restored, followed by his wife holding a pie, her eyes soft with something close to shame. Then came Marcy, my granddaughter, with her daughter. They didn't say much, but the little one ran straight to me, hugged my legs and whispered, "Grandpa, can I sit next to you today?" I smiled. "Of course you can." By noon the house was full, not with apologies but with actions. People sweeping, setting up the table, warming food, placing name cards. I noticed mine had been carved into a fresh piece of oak. Daniel stood near the head of the table, unsure. I gestured toward the chair. "You host," I said. He looked surprised. But he took the seat. And as the family gathered, not because of guilt, not because of tradition, but because they'd remembered something real, I finally took a quiet breath. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd reclaimed.